Welcome back to DevSecOps Talks. Today I'm Paulina. We have Mate and Andre not with us for change, but we have 3 guests from UpCloud. We have Filipe, Mark, and Pawel, who we had 1 episode. It might be already out or not yet, but we have the same great crowd again. But today's topic will be talking about European LLMs a bit. But maybe shortly you can introduce yourself to remind people who you are before we jump into it.
Yeah, I can dive in with a slight correction. So I'm not with UpCloud. I'm actually Ankara. No worries at all.
Indeed.
But yeah, so pretty much I'm CTO of Ankara. Exactly. I'd be honored to be with them for sure, but we're not there yet for sure.
But you're using UpCloud at least.
Yes,
some.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, UpCloud definitely comes in as as mentioned before. Like UpCloud's a fantastic UI that I love. It's like a modern feel. That's what we need—a fresh breath of air for sure. But just a quick introduction myself. I'm Mark, CTO of Ankara. Pretty much we are the AI DevOps agent platform that's focused on bringing prototypes from Lovable into production within a couple of minutes. I'll give it over to you, Philip or Paulo.
Sure. I can start. I can go after you. So, hey, nice to be back here. Like, it was amazing first time. Now, again, I'm Filipe Berti from UpCloud. I'm a business intelligence manager there. Handling pretty much our internal data, business insights, and in the data platform, BI world, and as well, like joining in this conversation about LLM today. Nice to meet you all. Pawel, maybe.
Yeah, so hello again. My name is Pawel, and I am developer advocate at UpCloud. And as I said before, I think I'm kind of huge fan of LLMs, but not a fanboy of LLMs. So there will be some critical insights from me as well. So let's see.
Great. So we made the round, and today we have topic of not only LLMs, but more focus on European LLMs. And maybe we can start. What's your view of European LLMs, and how do you see the difference between what primarily US is serving us, what is much broadly used by industry right now, and typical more go-to models?
Yeah, I can probably dive a little bit into this because kind of my background is just trying out everything and anything in EU when it comes to AI. So I think there's kind of like, I guess, 2 different playing fields. We have the EU kind of pay-as-you-go token-based API AI, which you see from Mistral, for example, and I think like iGenie, and we're seeing a few more popping up in the EU arena, which is great. And then there's the other side of the coin, which is the self-hosted route, right? Like there's like UpCloud, they provide GPUs that you can just spin up your own, and then on demand you can shut it down for the evening, so you only pay for the hours you're using it. And other providers, like I think another one that's on my radar is Core.ai, which is like a decentralized GPU system as well, where it's kind of like you can gain access to gamer computers and use them on the fly for your real like untrusted payloads. As long as you're not putting anything sensitive in there, it's probably a good use case in a sense. But like using that kind of we have like an evolving arena of GPUs come into Europe, and I think it kind of is setting the ground for the self-hosted area as well, which I think is going to be super powerful moving forward. What's your guys' thoughts on the 2 arenas?
Yeah, I would say when we started discussing about this podcast, like my first question in mind, like, who are they? Because like Mistral, of course, like top of mind, they come to mind very quickly. If you're in Finland, Silo AI is something that, we hear here because like it's a Finnish model as well, LLM. But I was thinking like, hey, what are the other, LLM models per se? Like, of course, self-hosting is one thing, is one capability. Ideally, you can host any of them, but like models developed in here. And then I came across 2 other cases that I haven't heard before. I don't know if you guys did, like Aleph Alpha. I think it's a German one, used in more bureaucratic type of LLMs and data. and Euro LLM, that apparently is something like pan-European, like open, transparency is their keyword. So I think they are very different. And my opinion is that, yeah, you on one side you have European cloud providers providing you capabilities to host your models, to deploy your infrastructure and keep them on-prem, on sovereign infrastructure within EU, which is very important, very, very desirable for many industries. But on the other hand, when it comes to models per se, the data training set, the domain from where they develop the LLM, then like having it purely based on European data, like that's not so plural as we might be seeing. So I believe like we still have some room to grow, you know, like first off, well, reminding about those options, I would say, you know, when we are choosing, especially if you're enterprise looking forward, you know, for something bigger.
Yeah, I think that's a big part, right, towards European. I think one thing that makes us stand out in the AI arena massively, while it's seen as a negative, which is our compliance or regulation, it's also our strength as well, right? Like when we talk about an AI provider like Mistral, they have to be GDPR compliant, which means they are protecting our private data. And now we're moving into the 1st of August, which is now the AI Act, which says that they have to have safeguards for the residents of European people and bring this in. So companies like Claude can scrape that line. Like we've seen that with GDPR. American companies just haven't respected how we have perceived that these systems should work to protect our society. And so this is where I think the European AIs are just going to stand out massively. And I think like even towards your point there, Filipe, which was I think was very good, is like, okay, we're seeing these ones popping up, as you mentioned, Silo, Alpha, it's a bit of a tongue twister, and Mistral, but it's not they're just competing against each other. They're actually taking their own piece of the pie in themselves. Like you take, for example, the Alpha one. I'm going to always struggle with that in my tongue as I say it. But yeah, exactly. Alpha. Yeah, exactly. Ring it off. So for that one, for example, I remember reading about that one, and that one was focused on that it was industrial AI. Mistral is focused on coding AI, and I think Silo is more generalist, if I'm not mistaken, and multilinguistic was its strength. And so we kind of see that like we do have a few AI providers in Europe, but they're being more specialized for specific purposes, which I think is a very good way for these models to be going.
Indeed.
And again, we are coming back to the discussion. Sorry, Filipe. We are going back to the discussion we have last time, right? About the infrastructure and the differences between hypervisors and European vendors. We have more, limited capabilities, right? Because we don't have that much money into this industry like we have in US or they have in US. So we need to be smarter, let me say this way, about how we approach to this. And I think, Filipe, what you said about this room, I think that this is quite interesting because I believe there is, how to say this politely, big beautiful ballroom to dance for our AI approach, right? So there are three aspects to this. LLMs and AI as a software is one thing. Second is infrastructure, and the third thing is also the tooling, which is provided with this stuff. All of them need to grow in Europe, right? We do quite good job in terms of infrastructure. There is still space to grow. With LLMs as well. We have, you mentioned already a couple of them, but we also have those national LLMs. Each country, honestly, or almost each country, they develop their own LLM right now, right? So this is also very good, especially that we have so many differences in languages, in the, let's say, way of thinking, and so on and so on and so on, right?
I think, Paweł, you mentioned like quite interesting angle, which US doesn't really have, because they have, English as of course they have a lot of immigrants, but they have operating main language everywhere it's English, where in Europe, one thing is how many countries, so many languages, but some of the countries has more than one language. Take Switzerland, take Belgium, and so on. So and these languages are very different. They're not only in the same family, like, okay, in Scandinavia, Danish, Swedish, and Norwegian might be similar, or, Polish, Czech, or Slovakian gonna be more similar, but in between, it's everything pretty much from French, Spanish, and so on. And we have a lot of like country initiatives or projects like Bielik in Poland and so on. I don't know how much have any of you used of the more extensively national LLMs. Is there any? Do you see the difference in it? For example, if they're better with the native language or particular language than English?
Honestly, I didn't.
Okay. So let's go.
Honestly, I didn't. But especially Switzerland that you're mentioning here, like I've been following the news, and as far as I remember, I believe Switzerland was the first country that I started to see news about they investing and developing their own LLMs, especially because of the language and also their specific context of neutrality, but yet somehow part of the European community, and also defending that have some sort of sovereignty on the way you develop these, and providing that as a platform for their companies and their context was their strategic priority. Like I would say, even on a governmental level, for such an initiative to happen. And I think Italy, as far as I followed through the news, was the second one that I remember of discussing and as well taking it further, even more on the legislation side, like what is protected by AI or not, or what are the limits there for use of image or voice or whatever content you expose yourself and your data to it. So I think that come by design. I think that's the difference on the national LLMs from what I follow through the news compared to, let's say, more commercial big names that we are all familiar with, and many companies are, of course, using them because of the platform they offered. Pavel mentioned. I have one point about that, but I don't want to deviate from this question. Sorry, Mark and Pavel we're going to add something here, I believe.
Yeah, you go ahead, Paolo. I can follow.
Right. So I didn't use too much this, national models. That's my bad. I'm sorry. So I don't have anything smart to say here. However, I expect that there are two factors really. So first of all, those like national LLMs should be more, used to the language, right? Because they are like teach on the materials which are like national stuff, right? National poetry, national prose, and so on and so on and so on. However, again, those big players, they have much more money and much more force to scrap everything from everywhere. So honestly, it brought to my attention that I should do this kind of review, to compare those two, especially because we talk about, let's say Polish or Finnish or some languages like this, right? German. But let's think about more local parts, right? For example, you mentioned Paulina Bielik, right? I wonder if Bielik is able to speak Kashubian, for example, right? So this kind of, very small language family somewhere in Poland, right? So yeah, I will do this experiment, honestly.
Yeah. You have Kashubian or Silesian, or
Yes.
is it only per language, or is also dialect? Because, for example, like I live in Denmark for many years, so even here, like, okay, Danish it's in theory one language, but you go further closer to German border, there's gonna be a lot of German influence, how people speak and a bit words they're using. And for example, in Copenhagen, it's also different. So I wonder if that's also something what it can take over, or it can hallucinate in general. I think Poland it's more unified per language. Of course, you have regional words here and there besides Kashubian and Silesian, but the others, I think there's a lot of interesting things you can look into and how the results you're getting from LLMs here and the complexity which we have compared to the US.
Yes, and the training data is also important, the amount of training data, right? So I found right now that Bielik is just behind DeepSeek VT3. So that's something to check. But if yes, it doesn't sound bad, I would say, because this is what we didn't mention, right? Aside those like American ones, we also have another competitor, very interesting competitor from China, right? DeepSeek, which is also in, let's say, its own league right now.
I think China, it's also interesting case to compare because we have US, which is very, I think there are very different cases for European models, US models, and for Chinese models because of the whole law and, political context. That's also quite controversial if you should use it or not and in what use cases. So they also, a lot of companies, even if the models are good, they go away from it. So they're that increasing even need for a good European models in some cases.
Sure.
Yeah, but
sure.
I think that's the nice thing that with the DeepSeek that you mentioned there, Paolo, which is like it is an open source model, even though it's Chinese. That means anyone can do a full audit, and plenty have done the full audit on the DeepSeek models, which makes it more global model than a Chinese model, I would say. But if it was, since we all know that DeepSeek is hosted by the Ali Cloud, and they do get the model early, the model that's open source is not the same model that they host, right? And this is the exact point you're making, Paulina, which is that when Ali Cloud hosts the model, they add these policies on top and these safeguards to make sure that the model doesn't go against the regime or say anything that is not politically correct. So I think it's good to distinguish between the two. Again, the open source definitely comes out still superior, and I would definitely still consider it in a European cloud setup when we talk about like self-hosting that model.
And I think that aligns as well with what I read about like European initiatives. There's the LLMs for EU, if I remember correctly, the acronym there, which is multi-year type of initiative to make sure there will be diversity of language and smaller LLMs, will be included. I think that's also like one difference perhaps from the most commercial ones. Like as European Union, like being as it is, like everything is thought in terms of continental perspective and the multicultural aspects that I believe the big models lack. I think and I think that connects us to the point that Pavel made before, like, yeah, having money to invest on the development as the big clouds, big names have is one thing, but I believe the other part is like, what is the intention behind? I think the commercial drive and like seeking for the big commercial cases, like the sales approach there is quite stronger on the big LLM side. When you think about cloud, for example, I think what makes it great is not only about the model itself, but especially the platform. Because then you have like something for not so technical people to deploy their simplified agents, automated workflows, improving the prompt engineering without that much, AI engineering or any sort of software engineering skills. But you also have your cloud development environment, for example, for definitely engineers, AI engineers, like doing heavily like AI agent development and helping bigger initiatives. They are already happening, especially here in Finland through other communities I belong to. I've been hearing about cases where product development teams are already having their AI agents counterparts either as designers or as an agile coach. They're like helping them through the value stream process, like from the design to delivery to production. And that was basically made it viable because of Claude's environment tech platform out of the box. And I think it connects to our previous talk, the open source mindset and the platform engineering between Code's mindset and how comfortable you are with hands-on doing things.
Yeah, I think you stepped into the mud of one of the topics I really want to hit on, and it is why would I use a European cloud over Claude, right? And I think it's a really good question to ask, because you've hit into it. Like coders are developers are definitely pumping all their company's IP and secrets into Claude and into their engines, passing it over clients through APIs, through load balancers, and finally into caches stored in insecure places in Claude, right? And this is the problem, right? Like if we have models that we can self-host or access in Europe that we can have better trust with, like take for example in the US, right? They have both the Cloud Act and they have the Foreign Intelligence Act, right? And that pretty much allows that even if for example Claude says, oh, we're setting up an EU data center and it's going to be run by EU people, the mother company is still US, which means they still have to provide all the intelligence information, including your company's intellectual property and secrets, to the US government without you even knowing. And as long as that de facto is there, I'm not sold on that as an acceptable kind of flaw, especially in today's world where like obviously we have geopoliticals which are there as a factor, and that does impact us. Like I think one great one that came out again as a reassurance of why we should look towards EU cloud and even self-hosting if your business is really serious about this, is that a federal judge came out last week in the US and says if you have uploaded your company's IP to Claude, that's considered public domain. And that's absolutely nuts to say, because it means that you don't have trade secrets anymore. If a competitor comes in and copies your product, you can't say that's trade secrets because it's public domain. So like that situation is absolutely crazy, and not a lot of people have really caught it. But like intellectual property is what makes $1 billion company only a $10 company. You know, without that, it's not really worth anything.
That is true.
So that's a scary place to be, and I think it's a very good place of why the on-prem and kind of like the self-hosting of your old LLM is a key point. Not just because the economy figures are there of self-hosting, or like you've seen this one where one major enterprise in the US rang up a bill of $500 million within 1 month. Like these are the stories we have, but also it's the geopoliticals, which is a huge factor. It's like, well, I need to protect my company. And currently the models are positioned in a way that it follows US laws, and US laws aren't there to protect the company's IP. It's a scary place.
Indeed. There's where the sovereignty is, right? Like this is what we're talking about here. Like it's not only where your data is placed, like, but who has access to it. And especially like when we were talking about LLM, which kind of data sets are you using to train your LLM, and where they reside, and the whole, let's say, if we can say about knowledge, because like LLM is the model, but not necessarily knowledge. But anyhow, like all that training information and context, well, where do they reside, and how they were developed, which kind of sample they use. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Exactly. And you might have a good company like for example Copilot with Microsoft, but at the end of the day, if the data is not like properly secured, any employee can log in and see that data. And like fair enough, they're a Microsoft employee, but they're people at the end of the day, you know. So we need to have some way to have it secure. And currently we have a blank check kind of thing saying, do not provide me your secrets. But at the same time, the agent is running in the background doing print environments and dumping it all out to the model, you know, like it's very much a terrible catch, I would say. So I think this is a great point towards the EU. Again, I come back to that the EU has regulations on how we protect GDPR, our personal information. The EU is bringing out policies of how we can't just do people's faces in very inappropriate ways or use their faces in certain different ways. The US does not care about these things. The EU does. And this is the core reason why I think the kind of like the on-prem or the EU is going to be leading the charge, and we're going to see such great innovation. Like even to go back to your point, Philippa, about the investment, it's like, yes, that is a point, but it's only valid for a period of time. Eventually, like they got the head start, but they'll only have the head start for the first year or two. Eventually the market will catch up and that head start won't matter anymore. And I definitely feel that's where we're going. Like the open source models are becoming fantastic. Like I've been using the Qwen 3.6 myself. I have been using the Minimax and stuff like that. And these models are really great. I can get a lot of work done with them. Disclaimer, I still do use Claude 4.7 because it does have amazing power there. But these other models are really coming up very fast. I do believe that they are going to be the forefront.
Also, I think if there's a need on the market, it comes with where the money flows usually. So if we have a bigger need for, European cloud as we got over the last few years, then after European LLMs, that's when the companies start to invest more. That's where EU institutions start to invest more. That's where the countries start to invest more. So the money flows for where the needs is. So of course we are delayed, but we are catching up as well.
Yeah,
Paweł,
exactly.
sorry, I got into your word.
No problem at all. And I think that's what you mentioned really about data, right? So maybe I overstated it some time ago, but I said that we should change a little bit the what we define as ABC weapon, right? We have atomic, biological, and chemical. We should have ABCD, adding data to it, because this is also a weapon, right? So I know that it is an overstatement because you can't kill someone with data, but anyway, not directly, let's say. Maybe if you have very heavy hard drive. But anyway, it's something what we need to protect in different levels. So the training data, the data you provide to the model, what will happen with them, not only who will have access, like some single employee in the vendor company, but the company itself, what they will do with that, how they will use it, right? So what I provide. And also another element which is also related to all this geopolitical stuff is all related to fake news, fake media, fake information, and things like that. And we need to have the tool which we as a European can trust, that it provides the most truthful source for us here, right?
News reporting like it was the 1990s. I hear you. Like we're kind of like that's exactly what we used to have. It was non-biased news, right? And then suddenly that became more focused on clickbaiting than news. And now we're in a scenario where probably half the world doesn't even look at the news anymore, right? And so I totally agree with you that is a huge part. And again, this comes back to the EU's AI Act, right? That's coming in on the 1st of August. That is actually the key point. They want to bring in policies to make sure that the safeguards are in place against an AI model being used to push an agenda that's far-sighted to one direction of politics, or as we know with AI, you have the scenario where it's built on the persona of Elon Musk himself. So him being right or wrong, he's always right. So that's how the model is built in that perspective. So it's again, I totally agree with you. It's about having that source of truth that educates the people in the right way and not used as a tool or a weapon to force them to think how you think they should think. And that's the battle we're fighting with in AI, I'd say, massively across all of them.
Yeah, and I think also additional point is that, even if you're using particular company, even if it has a good policies right now, doesn't mean it's going to stay this way. Like we have few examples, one company gets sold to another one, suddenly they fire the CEO, the board changes, politics get involved and so on. And that's something what you need to be more aware of. So in which country is the particular company stated, because that's where, at least if the law is protecting you, they have lower chance of doing something with your data what you don't want to happen with it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one point towards also this is going to be my last point on AI Act, right? But was that if you use, for example, Claude or ChatGPT, they could have the policies in place now, but next month they might not. So you as a business owner, as a framework provider, has to verify on a monthly basis that they're complying to that policies. And if they remove it quietly, you need to have the test cases in place. So the level of complexity is going to be there. So irrelevant of it's an EU one or a US one, you're still going to have to build this framework to guarantee that you're compliant or face a 15 million euro fine. It's kind of where it's standing.
And you step into like an inception zone here that you probably use AI to understand the impacts that change of policy will have on what you do. So you are kind of circle back, just talking from a perspective,
Yeah, we're hitting into the dangerous area, right, that we've talked about with AI and how it recognizes that it's being tested, so it fools us to think that it's passing the test. And yeah, so let's not use AI for this test. Maybe that's a core lesson here that we're talking about.
Yeah, it starts to sound like void mechanism in Blade Runner. Let's not go that. How do you identify a
Exactly.
replicant? So yeah. But another thing that I was thinking about here, like, because we were talking about the LLMs, we were talking many pros here, right? We were talking about sovereignty aspects. Well, Pavel and Paulina were discussing about language specific, and that's something that Europe is mostly like, let's say, reach of cases, and at the same time will be very impacted by. And I think another thought that occurred to me when I was, thinking about this podcast today was about the recent, token prices and the avalanche of memes in every social media and everywhere. And I think yes, like I think it's coming to a point where I think that counterbalances the hype a little bit, because so far it was being like, yeah, let's use AI for everything, and elevated search to automations and things more worth of. With the prices coming through and the big bills, I think we start to discuss more about like self-hosting, like what are the costs involved, fixed versus variable, in which cases it will make sense. I was trying to think about like, what would be a good analogy here? Like on my mind, it would be like, hey, I think at some point with AI as a company, like, and the strategy will follow, we will very, very soon be thinking from the perspective of an individual. Do I own a car or do I take an Uber? Like based on AI, do I own and self-host my models, or do I use something out of the cloud depending on my usage? What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I like to jump on this one a little bit because for me, I'm a big user towards AI agents specifically, right? And so when we talk about like the use of AI, it's very good to distinguish them differently, because most people have used the AI chat or used like Cursor with their AI agent kind of being there alongside, but you're always kind of like in that session, like it's run for like the last 15 minutes and then it ends and you're in that loop. It's a very kind of almost manual to an extent that. But when you get into the agent realm, so for example, with me, I'm using an AI Hermes who I've coded out quite extensively. So it helps in Anchor for marketing, sales, and support. And it does research on feature tickets, and it just does a lot of like the low-hanging fruit movements. But the thing about it is that I originally hooked it up to one of the API providers of AI or LLMs. And it's like less than like maybe 36 hours, I already hit my first budget put of $200 because the agent was running and running. Oh, I couldn't find that information. Oh, I hit an error here. I'll try a different approach. It just keeps looping and looping. You don't even realize. And this is one of the dangerous things that we're going to see now, is that more employees and businesses and more organizations are going to be using these agents that are going to be just going and going without the metrics to track it. And like, we're not going to have manual interventions involved, or else kind of defeats the purpose of an AI agent. So how do you get the unique economics to work? Well, it doesn't work with the AI providers, right? Because they could be doing, like, the AI model could be doing tasks that are very rudimental or complex. And so you kind of need your own self-hosted model. And this is where I feel like this area comes in. Like, if you're an organization, the only thing that will make sense is to have a self-hosted model that will be provided for these agents and potentially to your employees internally. But first of all, the agents is going to be the first major cost savings, because they are running up the bills massively in the tokens. Like, as I said, within 24 hours, I was in the realm of something like 56 million tokens used by this agent. And if I recall correctly, I only got like one sales report from it, from that, so it wasn't great. And so I think this is a huge factor for sure, is that self-hosted models will be needed for these agents to run. And I'm seeing more and more in the market as well. There's these experts that come into companies to build, instead of building personal AI, build company AI, because we're all building AI processes ourselves, but we're not actually building the company's one, the next evolution for it. And so I think we're on the abyss of this starting to become a real like industry in itself, the agents.
I think
please.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so I will take it from a little bit different perspective. I'm sure you heard about this honestly, a couple of them already are there. The projects where they put, I don't remember the name. I know that the one of the project is called Agent Society, but I'm speaking about different one, where they put 10 agents in the society for 2 weeks. It was ChatGPT, Claude, Llama, or if I remember correctly, and Grok, right? And they allow them to be in the functions like important for the society, right? And interesting was what happened after those 2 weeks. So the best one, the most good for the society was the Claude one, right? But the worst one, and honestly, I'm not surprised, was Grok, right? Grok was able to destroy the society in 4 days. So now the question is, would we like to be controlled by Grok or Claude? Right? So if we want to be controlled at all, right? I'm not saying that Matrix is...
It's not an option, and the answer is like...
yeah. But generally, what my point is that we need to know what these agents are doing. Very often we use this in a little bit brainless approach. I'm sorry for saying that. I wanted to be kind of polite. But we just take the tool and use it whatever, right? We saw this many years ago with GPSs. People landed in lakes, in the cornfields, in whatever, because they didn't pay attention to the road, because GPS says something. The same happening here very often, right? So we need to know the guardrails, we need to know the logic behind the tools we are using, especially if we are developing some solutions based on it, right? So I would say, of course, the financial part of it is very important, how much tokens we burn in simple questions and so on and so on. But for me, I would prefer to use more expensive model when I understand what it does and how it works and what is the I know how it will sound, but what is the morality of this agent and the model behind it, right?
Sure.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I just want to add to the point there as well regarding the safeguards you mentioned, right? Like, I think that's actually, I heard an analogy today, and I'm pretty sure my CEO will be very proud of me for using this today, which would be, he said that when you think of a Formula One driver, the only reason why they can hit extreme speeds at extreme angles is because they know they can trust their brakes. And if we think towards AI, for example, if we want to move at the speed that we're being told that we should be able to move at, we need to have the safeguards in place to be able to know that when we feel something is hitting the fan, I'll use polite words, then we can hit the brakes. But currently we can't. We don't know what it's doing, how it's doing it, until the aftermath is felt. And as we've seen this, right, as proof in the industry, like Cloudflare's had massive outages, and it's definitely down to AI. AWS has had their huge one-day outage there 2 years ago for the exact same reason, because we don't have the safeguards in place. We think of these AIs as developers when really they're 12-year-olds running around in a playground, and we just need to use them for their best abilities, but recognize that they are reckless, right? And I think it's a really good point to bring up now, which will be, like, I'm not sure if anyone's seen the news yesterday, but Anthropic came out with a kind of like a huge red flag for the industry, saying that we should freeze global advancement of AI just because the amount of failures that they're feeling internally is in the tens of thousands on a daily basis. And so the levels of vulnerabilities and problems they're seeing is too tremendous to ignore anymore. And they're seeing a catastrophic future for us in it, and they're putting a breakdown, which is like, for a company like that, who, like, obviously that's going to lose some stock market. Like, I give them a lot of value, or a lot of praise for coming out, admitting to it, and say, like, hey guys, we need to think a little bit harder as humans and don't just keep chasing the carrot,
Yeah. And you were touching it was a huge topic on a recent, not so recent event I've been here in Helsinki, the CDO IQ symposium. Event brought several chief data officers and so on. And one of the biggest topics were about, like, return on investment models. How do you analyze that for AI initiatives, AI transformation, big projects, right? And they bring this person from the Massachusetts Commonwealth to talk about this. And the main topic is like exactly what you said, Mark. Like the amount of failures is so big that from the get-go, it how can I say, it tilts any analysis model from the previous, let's say, from more traditional projects, return on investment models, to an extent that you cannot say any initiative is worth of. So they start to work on a way that to incorporate the failure cases, but also how we outline what is worth of being analyzed on return of investment cases or not. With AI, it's on the thousands or hundreds of thousands of cases in one single company sometimes, So they are trying to come up. There are a few ones, but there is no answer. Like, and the push has been more into from the commercial, but from the mindset that AI makes you more productive, and that's that was the biggest factor, like compelling any decisions on continue investing on those, without clear perspective where it's going to take, the real impacts, the real outcomes. Did it actually help or cause more harm? So when it comes from the providers themselves, or from Anthropic in this case, I think this really needs to be praised, because this talks about transparency and responsibility with this. Like behind any AI, there are a full chain of enablement and responsibility, even social, environmental. In this case, it's that escapes from everyone's mind.
Palo, right?
Yeah,
I think that compliments Palo, right? Your point was, what's the morality behind this, right?
Yes.
And we're seeing Anthropic's morality very clearly.
Yep. At least an intention or an attempt, like I hope other follows through the example and this becomes practice.
Well, this is the second time they've proven us well, right? Anthropic came out right in like earlier this year, right? And they stood up against Trump, against using Anthropic within military weapons to be automated to kill people, and they're like, hell no, we're not doing this. And then Trump responded, public ban against Anthropic. You're like, but they weren't wrong. Like they had their stance, and to be honest, I think more than half the world agrees with them. So
so it is possible, but they're not everyone gonna agree with them, as we've seen as well. Someone else signed the deal with them.
Yeah, that's the other half.
Yeah, exactly. So as we see, we can go over a lot of different aspects, a lot of different angles to it, but we see that there is a need, bigger and bigger need to being able to get the European model, and bigger need for the investment into it and development also, as we have more complex structure language-wise and versus the US, and being able to support it as well. And especially when you support people who, of course, a lot of people speak English as well, but a lot of people do not speak English. Looking close by, look into older people who are not into, my parents close to, for example, they speak, but to being able to work in it, forget about it. So there is a big need out of tech, especially who are not used to working in English, I think, as well. But I think we should wrap up, as we are hitting also the time limit. Yeah. Do you have a final round of what else you would like to add to it? Paweł, maybe you can start.
Yes, definitely. So quickly, for sure, what we need to think about is what you, Filipe, mentioned. Tooling around the whole ecosystem around European LLMs, because it's not just the LLM. We, all of us probably, we can play with like bare LLM on our machines, right? But not that many people can. We need to go outside the bubble. That's why we need this tooling. Exactly what Anthropic done with this agentic systems and so on and so on and so on and so on. Not only Anthropic, right?
Yeah, I can follow. So pretty much, I think like if we look towards like where things are going. Like as we mentioned, we hit on the unit economics, for example, and like for example with UpCloud, like you can get like a GPU from them for like I think it's around like $350, and if you turn it off when you're not using it, it's even cheaper. And you then control all your data. You contain all that privacy. This is the direction that I believe in and will be going in myself. And I definitely see this going to be the future as well. And there's no one solution that fits everyone. So it's definitely knowing the options is going to make it powerful for what you decide to do with the tools.
I follow, and my point
And
is,
Filipe?
yes, from my side is what we talked on the last one, ecosystems thinking. You know, like we are doing that already with the cloud providers. I think with the LLMs and everything surrounding the tooling for that, we should be thinking on an ecosystem of our main providers and industries. Like for example, Ankar's case that we saw, like how you can deploy your Kubernetes infrastructure on sovereign cloud prompting, like that's a case of ecosystem. You have access to the main European sovereign clouds like Hetzner, OVH, us, like UpCloud, and you can do cool stuff there. And I think Europe is being on the vanguard of that. We should be proud and take it further. Surf the wave.
Yeah, exactly. We're ready for the surfing in Europe
Yes.
for sure.
And let's stop on this note. Thank you for the talk today. A lot of valuable opinions and point of views.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Paulina.
You have been listened to DevSecOps Talks with Matthias, Andre, and Paulina. For notes and information, please visit devsecops.fm. Thanks for tuning in.